Order, Madam Speaker.
Second Deputy Speaker.
May we take this opportunity for a silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. We may be seated. Honorable members, thank you for making the time to attend today's sitting. This sitting was called to allow the Honorable Ravi Pillay, MEC for Finance, to retable the KwaZulu-Natal Appropriation Bill of 2019 in accordance with Standing Rules 218 to 220. The KZN Appropriation Bill of 2019, which was tabled on the 7th of March 2019, had lapsed at the end of the previous legislative term in accordance with Standing Rule 250. It has therefore become necessary for the MEC for Finance to retable the bill. But before we go to that, we will start with the apologies for the day. The following honorable MECs have tendered their apologies for not attending today's sitting because of prior government engagements. The Honorable Ms. Ndube Ncube, MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. The Honorable Ms. HGS Mavimbela, MEC for Arts, Culture, Sports and Recreation. The Honorable Ms. Tipim Tetwa has also tendered her apology for not attending today's sitting. She is out of the country on party work. The other apology is that of Honorable Dr. Virana, who is also out of the country. There is also a message relating to a member who is unwell. The Office of the Speaker have received word that Honorable Mr. P. Govender is not well. We would like to wish him a speedy recovery. Birthday announcements. We want to take this opportunity to wish in advance a happy birthday to the Honorable Ms. KZN Budget, whose birthday will be tomorrow, the 10th of July, and we will not be having a sitting tomorrow. We wish you happy birthday, Shenge, and we wish you well. The other announcement is that Ms. Wendy Landsberg from PAMED is available up until 3 o'clock today to assist members who still have queries about their medical aid. And members will find her in the members' reading room. Chairpersons of committees are requested to remain behind after the adjournment for a short briefing by the chairperson of committees, Honorable Mr. R.T. Mthembu. When we adjourn at the end of the sitting, chairpersons of committees are requested to remain here in the chamber. The next item that we'd go to would be the announcements or reports by the Premier. Honorable Premier.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker and members of this House. KwaZulu-Natal will tomorrow, the 10th of July, 2019 launched its month-long Men's Month program in Durban. The campaign aims to engage with men on current issues facing them, and the campaign will be launched by an event which would start as a form of a parade from eThekwini Municipal King Dinizulu statue to Durban City Hall. The parade will also be attended by men in uniform and will be followed by key messages of the month, including the following activities: the Sukuma Sakendota, KZN Men advocating gender equality, men taking responsibility for their health and well-being, breaking the silence against gender-based violence, strengthening partnership with range of stakeholders to deal with challenges confronting men and the society. The second announcement, Honorable Speaker, is that on the 16th of July this month, the Deputy President of the Republic, His Excellency Deputy President Dabete David Mabuza, will lead the launch of UN-8 Global AIDS report, and this event will be in Umlalazi, and it is part of the campaign or the support that is dedicated to fight the HIV epidemic. We encourage members of the House to participate. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, we take this opportunity to announce that MECs and senior managers will, from the 15th of July, observe the Public Service Week, which will be used as a platform for participation and engagement on the delivery of quality public services to people. MECs will be participating in activities in their respective areas. This will also include the commemoration of the former President Nelson Mandela's Day on the 18th of July, where we will observe at least 67 minutes through various community services in honor of former President Madiba. We are breaking the grimy restraints for a united, healthy, safety, and prosperous KwaZulu-Natal. We ask all men who are here to participate in tomorrow's parade, including nalaba akuhlale basukwe ukuthi nje baphume la sihleli kungonakele. Siyabonga.
The next item would be tabling of reports or papers. The ones that we have already received, then we are tabling, that are being tabled from the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, is the Zululand District Municipality Annual Report 1718 and Umgeni Local Municipality Annual Report 1718. Are there any further tablings? Then we'll move to the following item, formal motions by the Chief Whip.
Madam Speaker, we don't have any formal.
Thank you. Then we'll move to notices of bills or motions. Thank you, honorable members. Honorable Cele ZLI of the ANC.
Madam Speaker, le ndlu yaqaphela ukuguquguquka kwesimo sezulu lapho kubonakala khona ukuguguleka komhlabathi ezindaweni zasemakhaya. Le ndlu inquma kanje: uhulumeni makabuyekeze indlela yokufaka kwezimali ngenhloso yokunqanda lesi simo esikhungethe imiphakathi yasezindaweni zasemakhaya ukuze uma umhlaba usubuyiselwa kubantu bawuthole ukulungele ukusetshenziswa. Ngiyakuphakamisa.
Honorable Fraser MC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. This House notes that in 2016 local government elections, the DA and the EFF went into a coalition government in metros. This House also notes that their aim was to cripple the ANC, which had won the majority of wards, trying to defeat democracy through PR councillors. This House also notes that the EFF is now claiming that the DA is corrupt and is mismanaging these municipalities. This House therefore resolves to remind the DA and the EFF that the unholy artificial matrimonial union based on lies and deception will never last. I so move.
The Honorable Kaunda TM of the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. Noting that KwaZulu-Natal hosted an incident-free Vodacom July, Durban July over the weekend, which was attended by thousands of local and international visitors. This House therefore resolves that we thank the police for doing a sterling work in ensuring that the people of KwaZulu-Natal and visitors are safe, both on the road and in various places of entertainment. We also want to thank road users and members of the public for adhering to the rules of the road. I shall so move.
Honorable Kwanyana NJ of the IFP.
Mhlonishwa somlomo, ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo ngiyophakamisa kanje. Lendlu ikhathazekile ngesigigaba ezingezinhle esihlale njalo zenzeke isibhedlele eRK Khan. Muva nje kusanda kusabalala ivideo eveza owesilisa egcwele izibungu emlonyeni nokushaqisa kakhulu izwe lonke. Lendlu inquma 1 ukuba umnyango wezempilo wenze uphenyo olunzulu mayelana lesi sigameko. 2, uma kumnyango wezempilo uqinise isandla kubasebenzi bezempilo abangazinaki iziguli kodwa bebenza izifungo ukuthi bayosebenza ngokwethembeka. 3, uma kukhona abasebenzi bezempilo abangafuni ukusiza iziguli abaphume baphele esibhedlela badedele laba bazoba nothando lomsebenzi. 4, akuxazululwe zonke izinkinga ezikhungethe isibhedlela ezigcina ziholela ekutheni onesi esibhedlela bagcine sebenesihluko ezigulini ngenxa yezimo ezinzima abasebenza ngaphansi kwazo. Mhlonishwa somlomo ngiyophakamisa.
Honorable Moodley S of the IFP.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the next sitting day of this House, I shall move as follows: that the spotlight falls on the role of the RTI in accident prevention on our roads. The ongoing road carnages should necessitate a thorough review of the role function of the RTI officials. The House further notes the latest carnage which took place between Shakazet and Belito on Sunday, 7 June, is one such incident which could have been prevented had RTI officials been effectively deployed. For far too long, these officials have been saddled with administrative tasks which deviate from the core function of ensuring that accidents and unnecessary traffic delays are prevented. This we so move.
Honorable Singh B of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I give notice at the next sitting of this House I shall move as follows. Noting that the South African soccer team has done the country proud in progressing to the quarterfinals of the African Cup of Nations. The DA congratulates the team for their dedication to sport and excellent playing skills. It must be placed on record that more attention needs to be given to up-and-coming soccer players, especially young children who need more opportunities given to them with improved facilities to better enhance their sporting skills. This House resolves to call on the MEC for Sports and Recreation to commit to assisting soccer teams and having proper training facilities in KwaZulu-Natal. I so shall move. Thank you.
Honorable Ray E.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I give notice that at the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows, noting that a 76-year-old grandmother was recently raped in Gobezembe section in KwaZulu-Natal. We are about to celebrate Women's Month in August, and incidents such as these should be at the forefront of the MEC's campaign. This House resolves to call upon the MEC of Social Development to urgently consider expanding the hours of service of the 22.3 million rand care centre in KwaZulu-Natal, as most attacks occur at night, and to work closely with the SAPS to ensure the arrest of the attacker is made with urgency. So shall I move.
Honorable Twala MW of the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. On the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. That this House notes that yesterday was exactly 5 months since Mlungisi Madonsela was brutally murdered by the security guards at duty. Also noting that the EFF Student Command is going to its third elective conference this weekend. That today there is no free quality education in South Africa. Also, this House should resolve as follows: to call upon the NPA to reopen the case of Mlungisi Madonsela at duty in order to ensure justice for Mlungisi and other students who are brutalized by the police. To call on the MEC for Education to ensure that no private security guards are employed at institutions of higher learning as they are not trained for crowd control. Thank you.
Honorable S. Thakur Rajbansi of the MF.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I shall give notice that I shall move on the next sitting day of this Honourable House as follows. Noting the IPID murder investigation of former naval officer KZN Pillay of Phoenix, further noting allegations of SAPS officers in this ordeal, this Honourable House calls on the MEC of Safety and Security, Honourable Kabunda, to bring the IPID report to the Legislature with recommendations of curbing rogue elements among SAPS, as well as current plans to deal with suburban drug dealers. Moved by Mrs. Rajbansi.
Honorable Mlotshwa VR of the NFP.
Mhlonishwa somlomo, ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo ngiyophakamisa kanje. Lendlu yakunaka futhi yaqonda ukusweleka kwamanzi elokishini laseKhethane eWinterton oKhahlanga. Lapha abantu bakhona sekuphela iminyaka eyishagalolunye bengawazi amanzi. Wonke umuntu wakhona unendlu yomxhaso, enendlu yangasese ngaphakathi, kodwa amanzi do. Abantu baseKhethane sebethenga amanzi bethuthelwa ngamaveni u20 liter wamanzi bawubiza u5 rand.
Cela ukuvikelwa somlomo. Cela ukuvikelwa ngiyoze ngikhulume la.
Uvikelekile mhlonishwa. As soon as they drown the speaker, honorable members, I will call you out.
Thank you,
Please
Speaker.
don't drown the speaker.
Thank you,
But
Speaker.
let me finish then. You've called me in. I will do that. As soon as they drown you, I will call them out. Continue, honorable member.
Ababe ondunankulu ngaphambilini. Umnumzana uSenzo Mchunu. Nomnumzana uWillis Mchunu. Bafika bethembisa izulu lomhlaba. Maqede bahamba. Nomhlonishwa uNomsa Dube Ncube uyalwazi lolusizo olubhekene nabantu. Ngakho lendlu inquma kanje ukuba umhlonishwa uhlomuka olwaziyo naye loludaba angenelele kulolu daba. Number 2, ukuba undunankulu enza isiqinisekiso sokuthi abantu bayawathola amanzi kuleli lokishi ukuze bezoyeka ukuthutha indle ngamabhakede bebe benawo ama-toilet ezindlini amanzi kubantu. Madam Speaker, I shall so move.
Honorable Majola, NR of the ANC.
Honorable Speaker, in the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. This House notes the improvement on maternal, child and women's health as encompassed in the 10.10 intervention strategy, as well as the negotiated service delivery agreement. This is manifested in turning up of Umfolozi Hospital in Empangeni into a mother and child hospital. Secondly, the upgrading of the neonatal intensive care unit in Grace Hospital to be as established a ward for the as an ICU for the neonatal babies. This House resolves close monitoring and evaluation on the implementation of these outcome-based approaches by the committee. I shall so move.
Honorable Khoza, NM of the ANC.
Ngibona. Yey. Ngiyabonga somlomo. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. Noting that since the Department of Community Safety and Liaison intervened in Winen to resolve the conflict between the community of Ntlawe and Kwamadondo, police are making great progress in raiding the area of illegal firearms. Since last year, the faction fight has claimed the lives of 39 people. Following MEC Counter's intervention, police have intensified law and enforcement operations in that area, which have led to the recovery of a number of illegal firearms. This House therefore resolves: we commend the Department of Community Safety and Liaison, Inkosi Mthembu, Undunankulu, Izinduna, as well as the police for their efforts in stabilizing the area. I shall so move.
Honorable MB Gwala of the IFP.
Honorable Speaker, on the next sitting day of this House, I shall move as follows. This House notes the shocking revelation by some concerned truck drivers in the province of KwaZulu-Natal that government has failed to address the issue of poor working conditions in the trucking industry. They accused government authorities of being in cahoots with trucking companies who are exploiting them and employ foreign nationals truck drivers. This House resolves: One, to request that an urgent debate in this House on the poor working conditions of truck drivers in South Africa must be held. Two, urgent investigation must be conducted into the alleged reports of big companies bribing government authorities to turn a blind eye on their shenanigans. I shall so move.
Honorable Dubois HU of the DA.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I give notice that at the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows, noting that Tongaat Hewlett Sugar is in dire financial straits with cheap sugar imports ruining the KZN industry. That Tongaat Hewlett has concluded comprehensive studies into crop diversification and production of biofuels, which will help save jobs and boost the economy. The government has done little to aid the company and others like it in fully developing its biofuels and alternative energy strategy. This House resolves to call upon the MEC for EDTEA to establish a multidisciplinary task team to urgently support the biofuel industry and unlock this undeveloped industry. I thank you.
Honorable Kika I of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I give notice that at the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows, noting that at RK Khan's Hospital, alleged gross negligence found the late Mr. Ibrahim with a maggot infestation. 2, a patient's cell phone torch was used to perform a procedure on her because the hospital light source was unavailable. Further noting, KZN Health has reached such a low that patients are asked for their cell phones to perform procedures on them. The Health MEC's investigations into these matters will likely yield no result. The ANC rewards human rights violators such as Deadly Lomo with chairperson's positions instead of ensuring accountability. This House therefore resolves, 1, to welcome the South African Human Rights Commission's own initiative investigation into this facility, and that all directives issued upon the completion must be implemented. So shall I move.
Honorable Ntuli M of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At the next sitting of this House, I shall so move. Noting that the scandal-riddled mayor of eThekwini, Zandile Gumede's ANC factionally imposed leave of absence has come to an end, and further noting that the ANC has always failed to deal decisively with corruption amongst their ranks, even when presented with compelling evidence, that the DA does not believe that a city with a mayor arrested for fraud and corruption, the chair of human settlements arrested for fraud and corruption, the manager of supply chain arrested for fraud and corruption, ANC having 62 councillors also implicated in fraud and corruption, the city manager turned state witness can function any longer. Therefore, this House resolves that Premier Zigalala continues what he started in dealing with the matter of Zandile Gumede and makes her leave of absence a permanent one, and that the COCTA MEC uses its powers to dissolve this council and ensure that the people of eThekwini can have a fresh start with councillors that actually do their job. I shall so move.
Honorable N.M. Sibia of the ANC.
Botaji. Siyabonga Somlomo. Somlomo ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo. Ngiyakuphakamisa kanje. Ngiyadabukisa ukusweleka ngendlela esezingeni eliphezulu kwamanzi endaweni esifundeni saseMzinyathi. abantu bakulesi sifunda basenhluphekweni enkulu. Ukutholakala kwamanzi kwehle ngendlela emangalisayo selokhu kwathatha laba abaphethe umkhandlu njengamanje. Abaphathi bomkhandlu bahluleka
Continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Speaker. Abaphathi bomkhandlu abakhona njengamanje bahluleka bayanqama ukulethela abantu basemzinyathi amanzi. Lendlu iyanquma ukuthi ukhokta ulibuke lolu daba ulibuke leduze ngoba sifisa abantu basemzinyathi bawathola amanzi ngokusheshsha. Inhlupheko iphezulu kakhulu emzinyathi selokwathatha abaphethe umkhandlu. Abantu bakhathele, abantu abangabasizi ngalutho balibele ukuhamba izangoma beyobhula ukuthi yini eyenza bengakwazi ukuletha intuthuko. Siyabonga somlomo.
Honorable N. Masmelane Zulu.
In the next sitting of this House, Speaker, I shall move as follows.
Bengithi mina ngoba yena kakaqali. Bengithi ngoba kakaqali nokukhuluma ngeke ngithi mhlambi senithintwa wakushilo. Asimpheni ithuba khuluma.
Ngiyabonga Somlomo. Noting that the Department of Transport is making progress in resolving the conflict in the Mandeni Sundumbili Taxi Association, which resulted in the torching of 6 vehicles last week. The department, working with Santaco, has identified a number of irregularities in the manner in which the association is being governed. And these include the illegal collection of fees, among other things. This House therefore resolves to continue condemning the violence within the taxi industry and inculcate a culture of constructive engagement to resolve disputes. We support the department's effort to stabilize the situation in Mandeni and Sundumbili and other taxi associations that show signs of instability. I shall so move.
Honorable members, I believe we've called out the entire list. Oh, no. Number 10, Honorable Duma, SA, sorry.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for affording us this opportunity. In the next sitting of the House, I shall move as follows. The unity that has been displayed by African teams participating in the Africa Cup against the negative background from United States of America government that former leader Moses' death is a threat to a successful tournament. We are delighted by the sterling performance by Bafana Bafana against Egypt, the host nation. Let's celebrate as the nation under the stewardship of President Cyril Ramaphosa. The House resolves as follows. The quest to revive school sport is a must, and DSR must invest more in rural areas and development of infrastructure in the hinterlands. I shall so move.
Honorable Madlopa CQ of the ANC.
Madam Speaker, I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in the next sitting, noting the recent floods in KwaZulu-Natal, which claimed the lives of at least 70 people and left hundreds of more destitute, coupled with the devastating drought of 2015 to 2017 that left a trail of destruction of both food security and the environment. There is a need to address these threats collaboratively with academia to find ways to preempt devastating natural disasters. This House resolved to mandate research institutions to develop methods that could indicate where floods and droughts will precisely strike. I so move. Thanks.
Thank you, honorable members. Now, I believe that we have finalized the motions. I would call upon the MEC for Finance, Honorable R.R. Pillay, to deliver his introductory speech to the bill and thereafter to table the bill. Honorable MEC. We are looking at you to announce that the
It is on.
The speech is there. It's there or electronically. The other one is coming in inside, so you have to understand that it's there. Icon.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, our Premier, my colleague MECs.
The time is 60 minutes that you will do that.
The Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Members, Mayors and Councillors present. I think it's necessary for me to honour a veteran in the gallery, the former Deputy Chair of Chairs, Honourable Happy Blosse, who was a member of this House since 1994 until the last term. Heads of department, chief financial officers, head of provincial treasury and officials present, business, academic, religious and community leaders, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. We present this budget at a time when a positive mood is sweeping through our beautiful province. That mood is induced by the sixth administration's visible energy and vigor in articulating a coherent plan for inclusive economic growth and social transformation, fighting corruption and accelerating service delivery. Of course, we've had the added bonus, as indicated by two speakers today, on a lighter note, of Bafana's victory over Egypt, and of course the Proteas' defeat of Australia, which is always a good thing whenever it may happen. But I think the lesson of Bafana's victory in particular, I think, was a lesson of grit, determination and courage, but also underpinned by sound planning. And I think that is a lesson we can take in the work that we do as this House. Buoyed by this coherent plan as the Provincial Treasury, an institution historically tasked with being the guardian of the public purse, we are determined to play our part as a contributor to an environment conducive to investments and job creation. More than ever, as the provincial government, we are determined to continue on our path of fiscal discipline and fiscal consolidation, but using the resources that we have available in a productive way with impact. For the past 8 years, this province has not deviated from its budget by more than 1%, and this will continue. There is no place in our plan of action for fraud and corruption, and neither is there room for failure. Human rights and activist and Nobel Prize laureate Rigoberta Menchú reminds us that, and I quote, "Without strong watchdog institutions, impunity becomes the very foundation upon which systems of corruption are built, and if impunity is not demolished, all efforts to bring an end to corruption are in vain," close quote. We are cognizant that as the provincial government, we have to lead by example, because what we do impacts directly the livelihoods of our people. And as we tackle the challenges facing us, we will be creative, but not reckless. We will be imaginative, but not overzealous. We will be ambitious, but remain realistic. Our efforts as Provincial Treasury must go beyond a mere bookkeeping exercise. We will focus substantially on the principle of value for money. We will want to dig deeper to look at the impact in society of the money we spend and the alignment with our priority objectives. This budget is, of course, a revival of the 2019-20 MTEF appropriation bill, which was tabled by my predecessor on the 7th of March 2019. I will explain the precise legal framework around this revival later on. It is, however, new information for almost half this House who are new members. In reviving this appropriation bill, we are aware of the urgency with which our people want things to be done, but also cognizant of the internal and external factors that limit us. It is in times of difficulty like this that the true character of a nation and of its leaders get tested. Unfortunately, adversity also tends to breed populism, whereby false messiahs go around promising quick fixes to complex problems. We will not go that route. Our people have placed their trust in us. We dare not play with their emotions. As President Ramaphosa warned in his response to the SONA debate, that while the current state of affairs requires greater urgency and focus, there are no quick fixes. In President Ramaphosa's words, and I quote, "Now is the time to focus on implementation. It is time to make choices. Some of these choices may be difficult, and some may not please everyone. At a time when public finances are limited, we will not be able to do everything at one time, close quote. In his State of the Province address, Premier Sihle Zikalala made a frank assessment of the many challenges facing our province. These include high levels of unemployment, high cost of living for those who are employed, poor state of local government, and growing social ills such as drug abuse and violence in schools. Honourable Premier, we are encouraged by your pronouncement during the State of the Province address that more attention will be given to all municipalities in the province, especially those that are struggling. The latest report on municipalities for the year ended in June 2018 is worrying, as it paints a grim picture about the financial well-being of our municipalities. It is a picture largely characterized by a regression in audit outcomes, a decline in accountability, and poor internal controls. The Auditor General noted that in many municipalities across our province, vital internal controls were ignored. Because local government is at the coalface of service delivery, we realize its importance, and therefore as a provincial treasury, we will also focus more attention on this sphere. As directed by the Premier, working together with COCTA, we will be developing a very specific intervention program to deal with this issue. The Premier has made it very clear to us that consequence management is a fundamental part of the remedial action. In fact, I can report that over the last 2 weeks, Premier, teams from Treasury and COCTA have been visiting every municipality in the province, collating a report for the attention of leadership and decision-making. Through the Provincial Treasury's Municipal Support Program, we will continue assisting and providing technical support to municipalities with the primary aim of ensuring compliance with the Municipal Finance Management Act and other relevant legislation. The MFMA and its associated regulations impose very specific duties and responsibilities on Provincial Treasury in this regard. Through the Supply Chain Management Unit, Provincial Treasury will continue to provide hands-on support and will undertake comprehensive compliance assessments of departments, municipalities, and public entities to help reduce irregular expenditure, caused firstly by technical non-compliance with SCM processes. But we will also intensify the fight against fraud and corruption related to the subversion of SCM processes, but also ensuring the lawful use of supply chain management to advance inclusive growth. Specific to the latter, that is, inclusive growth or radical economic transformation, is the proper understanding and implementation of the Preferential Procurement Regulations of April 2017. These regulations expressly authorize and empower SCM processes and institutions of government to do inter alia the following: to negotiate with a successful bidder to reduce the price tendered to be better aligned with market-related prices, and if negotiations held in good faith are unsuccessful, institutions can proceed to the next bidder and repeat the negotiating exercise. In our monitoring and evaluation system, we should develop an indicator to demonstrate the extent to which we have been able to make effective use of this regulation. To specifically target SMMEs as beneficiaries of the procurement process, to use geographic demarcation combined with other objective criteria such as the deprivation index to achieve the imperatives of economic transformation, to use more effectively pre-qualification criteria in identified tenders to advance designated groups on the basis of BBBEE, status of contributor, exempted micro-enterprise or qualifying small enterprise, or on the basis of subcontracting with EMEs or QSEs, which are at least 51% owned by black youth, black women, people with disabilities, people living in rural or underdeveloped areas or townships, cooperatives, and military veterans. Provide for tenders based on a stipulated minimum threshold for local production and content and effective use of subcontracting as a condition of tender. Members of this House, we will also be monitoring the implementation of the municipal cost containment regulations as gazetted by the National Treasury in June 2019. These regulations are aimed at promoting better governance and management of finances by municipalities and municipal entities through eliminating wastage of public resources on non-service delivery items. While the primary responsibility for enforcement of these regulations lies with COCTA, we will take a keen interest in the implementation of the new regulations within the framework of cooperative governance. Over the next 5 years, we will be guided by our key government priorities, and these are economic transformation and job creation, education, skills and health, consolidating the social wage through reliable and quality basic services, spatial integration and human settlements, social cohesion and safe communities, a capable, ethical and developmental state, and a better Africa and world. Within this broad framework, there are very specific priorities set out in the Premier's State of the Province address. These will find expression in the various budgets by the departments. All departments are currently working on this reprioritization exercise, and we expect to deal with the outcomes of that exercise in the adjustment budget later this year. We agree with Premier Zikalala when he said, and I quote, "Indeed, we are faced with extreme difficulties and serious restraining socio-economic challenges, but because of our conviction with the genuine cause of our liberation, democracy and development, we have no doubt that we will triumph. Definitely light will prevail over darkness, good over evil, friendship and human solidarity will defeat greed and exploitation, just as growth and prosperity must win over underdevelopment and social decay. Because our cause is genuine and our mission entails noble goals, we have no doubt that victory is certain." Close quote. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank predicted that the global economy would grow by 3.3 and 2.9% respectively in 2019, with South Africa's growth predictions by these institutions being lower at around 1.2%. In the first quarter of 2019, South Africa's economy shrank by more than 3% compared to the previous quarter, with this poor performance largely attributed to load shedding, a strike at gold mines, and weak levels of investment. The mining, manufacturing, and agriculture sectors all saw concerning declines, with the export of goods from our country also falling sharply, with the latter being partly due to the effects that the global trade war between the United States and China is having on global growth. The country is holding its breath once again to see what the second quarter will bring, but there is good reason to be hopeful. KwaZulu-Natal is not immune from the sluggish economic performance, with the provincial economy growing far below the 5% envisaged in the Provincial Growth and Development Plan. Between 2011 and 17, the economy of KZN grew at a moderate average of 2%. The forecast for this year is that growth for the provincial economy will be at 1.8%. KZN, of course, has a high number of non-economically active people, which is estimated at 3.5 million at the fourth quarter of 2018, and translating to about 41.3% of our population. Furthermore, unemployment in the province is high among district municipalities that are in rural areas due to limited economic activities, lack of economic infrastructure, and highly unskilled labor force, amongst the others. The Honourable Premier Sishla Zikalala has given us the above stated priorities precisely to respond to these challenges. And as we enter this new chapter and begin in earnest to focus on our new priorities, the Provincial Executive Council will have serious discussions on how new priorities will be funded. Most will have to be funded through reprioritization of existing budgets, while others, if possible, may be considered for additional funding when we prepare the adjustment budget in a few months' time. Until then, existing budgets must be lawfully, efficiently, and effectively used to effect impact. At 130 billion rand, that is a significant amount with which we have to work. Combine this with our municipal budgets in excess of 100 billion, and those are sizable budgets to use to have impact on the welfare and well-being of our people. In order for this new administration to hit the ground running, we need to ensure that the budgets that were tabled in this House on the 7th of March 2019 are adopted and that the appropriation bill is revived in this 6th legislature. Standing Rule 250 indicates that all business before the House or any committee on the last sitting day of the term of the legislature lapses at the end of that day. In other words, the appropriation bill tabled on the 7th of March lapsed in the last term, and it is thus required that this House revives the bill that was tabled on 7th of March 2019. When my predecessor tabled
the MTF budget in this House on the 7th of March, it was prior to the elections, and in any election year, the budget processes could not all be finalized prior to the 5th legislature being dissolved. As this was to be expected, the provision of Section 29 of the PFMA became important in that this section allows departments to commence spending the amounts allocated to them before the appropriation bill for 2019 is passed. Section 29 requires provinces to pass their own Direct Charges Act, though, and this was done in 2002 when the KwaZulu-Natal Direct Charges Act number 4 was passed. This act, read with Section 29 of the PFMA, thus provides the legal basis for provincial departments and public entities to commence spending their allocations before the formal appropriation and voting processes have been concluded. Section 29(2) of the PFMA states that a maximum of 45% of the budget may be spent in the first 4 months of the year based on the amount appropriated in the previous annual budget, and provides for a further 10% to be spent in ensuing months, but limits this expenditure to the amount appropriated in the previous annual budget. By reviving the appropriation bill today, we are taking the next step in finalizing the process that commenced on the 7th of March 2019, with today's session to be followed by each vote's budget being tabled to the Committee of the Whole House in line with Standing Rule 2241B, followed by a debate on each vote's budget. This will culminate in a general budget debate on all 15 votes and finally voting on the appropriation bill. The budget I am tabling today is summarized in the table below and indicates that KwaZulu-Natal receives 106 billion rand in equitable share funding from the National Fiscus in the 2019-20 year, with a further 21.1 billion received in conditional grant funding. Provincial owned revenue and cash resources amount to 3.7 billion. This means that a total of 130.9 billion is available for KwaZulu-Natal to implement its programs and projects. Of the 130.9 billion, an amount of 130.5 billion is allocated to the 15 votes, and the balance of 400 million is kept as a contingency reserve. While budgeting for a contingency reserve has become a norm for this province, the amount of the contingency reserve is set at 400 million, whereas this was previously set at around the 650 million, and I will explain why shortly. As indicated, the table sets out the expenditure, and I'm not going to take it line by line. Safe to say that there were 2 equitable share budget cuts effected against KwaZulu-Natal. And the data update of the equitable share formula, and the main factor in that formula is the population changes with migration in the main to Gauteng, which results in the cuts of 444.6 million, 706.6 million, and 1.3 billion over the MTEF. It is worth noting that this is the 7th consecutive year that the province loses money as a result of these data updates. In addition, President Ramaphosa announced that there would be minimal or no annual salary increases for public office bearers. Premiers, members of the executive councils, and speakers did not receive salary increases, while members of the provincial legislature received a 2.5%. This announcement resulted in National Treasury cutting 8.8, 9.4, and 9.5 million from the province's equitable share. These budget cuts were absorbed in a number of ways. The contingency reserve was lowered to 400 million, as mentioned. It was agreed that the budget cut relating to the freezing of public office bearers' salaries would be cut from those departments who budget for such salaries. An exercise was also undertaken to ensure that provincial owned revenue growth was not too conservative, and this resulted in increases in the provincial owned revenue budgets. Amounts that had previously been recalled into the Provincial Revenue Fund were assessed to see whether these funds will be needed in the near future. Where it was felt that these projects would not be immediately implemented, these funds are being used to fund the budget cuts, but with the understanding that these funds may be returned to these projects when possible. So these cuts include an amount of 600 million was held in the Provincial Revenue Fund as the first earmark amount for the provincial government precinct. The current economic climate and the constant budget cuts have not made it possible to add any further funds to this project since the initial 600 million was ring-fenced by the provincial treasury. Of this, 300 million rand was used to offset the budget cuts. I may depart from the prepared speech to indicate that there are several departments that are in the position to use their internal funds to commence with their portion of the precincts, and that's a work in progress which we will report on in due course. The KZN Sharks Board was allocated 10.5 million in 2013-14 for the purchase of land. This transaction did not materialize, and the funds were recalled into the Provincial Revenue Fund. These funds are to be used to offset the budget cuts. In vote 12, Transport requested that 50 million rand allocated to them for the construction of a cross-border crime-fighting structure be suspended from their vote and be kept in the Provincial Revenue Fund, as the funds were allocated on condition that a memorandum of agreement be signed between the province and other national bodies responsible for border control with the aim of recouping this seed funding. This condition has not yet been met. These funds are therefore used to offset the budget cut. These measures were adopted so as to protect departments from the budget cuts and to ensure continued service delivery. But there were also additions to KwaZulu-Natal provincial equitable share. The additional funds amount to 85.9 million, 88.2 million, and 300.8 million over the MTEF. The funds are earmarked for National Treasury as follows. Social Development received 6.6 million and 7.1 million in 2021 and 21-22. This relates to contracts for the provincial food distribution centres and community nutrition development centres ceded to the provincial departments of social development by the National Department of Social Development. Again, social development received 62.5 million, 66.7 million, and 70.4 million over the MTF with respect to the social worker employment grant. The social development sector is phasing this grant into the equitable share, and this is thus not new money, but merely a change in the funding stream from conditional grant to equitable share funding. Provincial Treasury receives 5 million per year over the 1920 MTEF to increase the technical capacity within its infrastructure unit. Education receives 27 million in 1920, and these funds are added to improve access to sanitary products and sanitary dignity for female scholars. Health receives an allocation in the outer year of the 1920 MTEF to assist in dealing with the Cuban Doctors Program. A total of 1 billion is allocated to the health sector in 21-22, with KwaZulu-Natal's share of this being 208 million. COCTA receives 9.6 million, with carry through over the MTEF for provinces to strengthen their support interventions in municipalities as per Section 139 of the Constitution. The 1920 MTEF gives effect to 3 function shifts. The first function shift entails the movement of the learner transport function. It's really back from education to transport, or from education back to transport, which was already initiated when the 1819 adjustments estimates were tabled in this House. Secondly, the gaming and betting function moves from the Office of the Premier to the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. Thirdly, the heritage function, inclusive of the entity Amafa, moves from the Office of the Premier to the Department of Arts and Culture. KwaZulu-Natal is the recipient of 24 conditional grants over the 1920 MTEF. Conditional grants are given to provinces for a specific purpose, and the use of these funds is regulated by a grant framework as contained in the Division of Revenue Act. In aggregate, KwaZulu-Natal's grant allocation increases by 907.4 million in 1920, decreasing by 30.2 million in 2021, and increasing by 1.3 billion in 21-22. KwaZulu-Natal's total conditional grant budget is thus 21.1 billion, 21.8 billion, and 23.1 billion over the MTEF. The largest of these grants are the HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach grant at 5.8 billion under the Department of Health, the Human Settlements Development Grant at 3.5 billion, the Education Infrastructure Grant at 2.2 billion, the National Tertiary Services Grant at 1.2 9 billion, this is under health, and the provincial roads maintenance grant of 1.9 billion under transport. The details of all these grants is contained in the estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure, or the Green Book, which I've seen you all have before you. This speech will thus only focus on those grants that show the biggest increases and decreases so that members are aware of these. And these are the education infrastructure grant shows an increase of 392.5 million in 1920, 22.1 million in 2021, and 177.7 million in 21-22, with the new budget amounting to 2.2 billion, 2 billion, and 2.2 again over the MTEF. The increase in 1920 includes 200.3 million in terms of disaster relief funding allocated to deal with the repairs of schools relating to the 10th October 2017 flood disaster that occurred in the province. The balance of the increase relates to the incentive nature of this grant. The Health Facility Revitalization Grant sees an increase of 200.4 million in 1920, a decrease of 3.8 in 2021, and an increase of 91.2 in 21-22. This brings the grant total to 1.3 billion, 1.2 and 1.3 billion over the MTEF. National Treasury indicated that this grant was being cut by 60 million in the first 2 years of the MTEF due to slow spending by the sector as a whole, with only 3 provinces receiving an incentive allocation, and we are pleased to report that KwaZulu-Natal is one of the provinces who benefits from the incentive allocation. A new grant is introduced for health, namely the Human Resource Capacitation Grant. This was initially a component of the National Health Insurance Indirect Grant held under the National Department of Health, but a decision was taken by the sector to make this a direct grant allocated to each province. This is to assist provinces to appoint critical staff in health, including nurses, medical interns, and porters, to name a few. The amount allocated to KwaZulu-Natal in this regard is 122.3 million, 130.4 million, and 138.7 million over the MTEF. Some structural changes are made to the Comprehensive HIV, AIDS, and TB grant, and the grant name is amended to the HIV, TB, Malaria, and Community Outreach grant. This grant sees a reduction of 273.6 million in 1920 and 231.5 million in 2021, while increasing by 598.8 million in 2021-22. The grant amounts to 5.8 billion, 6.5 billion, and 7.3 billion over the MTEF. In terms of the structural changes to the grant, a separate malaria component is created with funds reprioritized within the grant to fund this new component. It was also decided to split the TB portion of this grant into a separate component in order to improve monitoring of spending in this area. The community outreach services component increases by 1 billion across all 9 provinces to fund the minimum wage of community health workers. Some changes are made to the grants in the human settlement sector. The title deeds restoration grant comes to an end in 2021 and will be phased back into the human settlements development grant. To promote improved coordination in support of individuals in the gap market purchasing homes, an amount of 950 million for the sector as a whole is reprioritized from the HSDG over the 1920 MTEF, with these funds allocated to the National Housing Finance Corporation for the finance-linked individual subsidy program. Funds of 1 billion and 2 billion are cut from the HSDG across all 9 provinces in 2020 and 21-22 as part of the government's broader set of fiscal consolidation. In KwaZulu-Natal, the HSDG increases by 210 million in 1920, while decreasing by 407.3 million and 813.3 million in 2021 and 21-22 respectively. The budget for this grant amounts to 3.5 billion, 3.1 billion, and 2.7 billion over the MTEF. An amount of 247 million is the earmark for 1920 and 400 million in 2021 being disaster relief funding, specifically to deal with the repairs to houses damaged by the 10th October 2017 storms. But those cuts are not totally lost. And I say that because there's a new grant, namely the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant, is introduced from 1920 MTF, with the funds for this new grant reprioritized from the HSDG. This grant is specifically for informal settlements upgrading, and the amounts allocated to this grant are 553.8 million in 2020-21 and 793.8 million in 2021-22. Thus, if one adds what is called the USDG, which goes directly to eThekwini as a metro, and where eThekwini Metro has already committed to spend at least 50% of that grant towards informal settlements, I think conditions are ripe for a massive intervention in our informal settlements as a whole. Now let's take an overview per vote for the 2019-20 MTEF. What will the 130.5 billion rand deliver? The table shows all 15 votes, their budgets in 2019-20, and the percentage of the provincial budget allocated to each vote in that year, as well as the budget for the outer 2 years of the MTEF. I'm not going to go through the table line by line, but as mentioned, KwaZulu-Natal will be spending 130.5 billion. The largest share of the provincial budget, MEC Mshengu, goes to education, which receives 41.4%, followed by health at 34.5%. This means that these two departments jointly receive nearly 76% of the budget, with a balance of 24% allocated to the remaining 13 departments. Important to note is that 13.6 billion of the provincial budget is spent on infrastructure, which is about 10% of the provincial budget. It is well known that infrastructure spending by governments generally results in higher economic output in the short term by stimulating demand, but also in the long term as it increases the overall productivity of a country. This type of investment will contribute towards economic growth and job creation. Departments are discussed in order of the size of their budget, with the information provided here extracted from each department's chapter in the Green Book. I encourage members to study the Green Book carefully, as it gives a great deal of information on each department and on what they intend to do with the budget allocated to them. The information in the Green Book is provided at a program and sub-program level, as well as at economic classification level, so that you can see how much is spent on capital versus current. Information is given on personnel numbers per department, infrastructure, transfers to other organizations, conditional grants, service delivery target, amongst others. The Green Book published in this province is the most detailed of all the 9 provinces, thus providing you with as much information as possible to oversee what departments do with the budgets allocated to them. This thus assists members in their oversight role and also provides as much transparency as possible to the citizens of our country. The contents of this book are posted on both the national and provincial treasury websites and are therefore also accessible to the public. Education. Education budget allocation over the MTEF is 54 billion, 57.7 billion and 60.9 billion, and relates to the provincial priority of education and skills development. The largest share of the department's budget allocation is for the provision of personnel. And MEC Mshengu and I were exchanging the numbers earlier on, and they are huge, and perhaps we'll touch on it if there's time. In this province, no-fee learners currently constitute 75% of the total population of learners in public ordinary schools. The National School Nutrition Program will provide nutritious meals to 2.3 million learners in 5,729 schools. The department aims to transform the schooling system and will thus focus on the rationalization or closure of small and non-viable schools with learner enrollment of less than 50 in primary schools. In this regard, also 172 primary schools were identified, and in secondary schools, the focus will be schools with a learner enrollment less than 100, and a total of 76 schools were identified. The department will maintain its intervention programs of previous years, with the main aspect of curriculum delivery and support focusing on the role of circuit managers as curriculum delivery supervisors, the audit of curriculum delivery, reskilling of teachers through improved teacher development strategies, as well as improving assessment strategies in the general education and training band. Subject advisors and circuit managers will assist schools to monitor curriculum coverage. Schools will receive well-prepared lesson plans coupled with assessment exercises and memoranda. These exercises will help teachers to get feedback after teaching each aspect of work. Schools will have curriculum delivery targets which will be monitored by circuit managers on a monthly basis. The supply of qualified educators remains a challenge, particularly in subjects like mathematics and science. In addition to the provision of bursaries to attract young people into teaching, the department will engage with the Department of Higher Education and Training to encourage more young people to register for mathematics and science qualifications. Projects relating to new schools, curriculum support classrooms, laboratories, multi-purpose classrooms, as well as electrification, sanitation, and water will continue so that basic functionality can be achieved in all 6,175 schools. At the last count, the department employed 115,635 employees, of which about 95,000 or 98,000, I think, are teachers. That gives us a scale of the responsibility of education, and we wish the MEC well in that challenge. The budget with regard to health over the MTEF is 45 billion, 48.2 billion, and 51.6 billion. This budget provides for health services primarily to the uninsured population of KwaZulu-Natal, and according to the 2017 General Household Survey, 12.6% of the population in KwaZulu-Natal are members of medical aid schemes. This means that some 1.4 million people are members of medical aid schemes, while approximately 10 million, or 87.4%, are not medical aid members. This fits into the provincial priority of ensuring that good health services are provided. The department plans to improve information communication technology with broadband connectivity established in 92.9% of hospitals and 50.2% of primary health care facilities by March 2020. They also plan on conducting 3,074,435 HIV tests to reduce the malaria case fatality rate from 0.8% to 0.54%, to perform 9,700 cataract surgeries, and to increase the average number of daily operational ambulances from 179 to 200. The commissioning of the new Dr. Pixelika Isaka Samuel Memorial Hospital is planned for 1920, as well as an increase in the number of clients on the centralized chronic medicines dispensing and distribution from 1.7 million to 2.2 million. This entails the distribution of chronic medicines to the public, but via private distribution centers, with this mechanism used to allow for easier access and to reduce queuing time for patients. This is done in an effort to improve the conditions of life for all South Africans, especially the poor. The department will endeavor to attract and retain skilled health personnel, as well as specialists to deliver acceptable health care to our people. And we are pleased to see in the Mercury of this morning on the front page, the MEC busy doing her work. Again, in this department, employs 80,682 employees. And again, we'd like to wish the MEC for health well in her challenges. Transport. The Department of Transport receives 8.3% of the provincial budget. The budget allocation is 10.8 billion, 11.3 and 12 billion over the MTF. The bulk of the department's budget is for the construction of roads and the maintenance of the provincial road network. In this regard, the department will continue with the construction of roads to link rural communities to provincial hubs of activity in order to achieve the strategic goal of providing access and mobility within the province. The upgrading and rehabilitation of the provincial road network to improve and prolong the lifespan of the network will also continue to be a priority. This ties up with the provincial priority of transforming and growing the economy, growing SMMEs, as well as improving the conditions of life for all South Africans. In fact, the former Premier Zbu Ndebele would always make the quotation that you don't need wealth to build roads, but you need roads to build wealth. The department will also continue with the subsidization of bus services, learner transport services, and undertake law enforcement campaigns to promote road safety. Transport's budget also provides for the Shova Kalula program, which is an intervention to improve mobility by providing bicycles to including learners in rural areas. In human settlements, the department receives 4 billion, 4.2 and 3.9 over the MTEF. The main purpose of this budget allocation is for the provision of housing to various sectors of the population, including rural areas and informal settlements. This falls in line with the aim to improve the conditions of life for all South Africans, especially the poor, and also in line with the provincial priority of human settlements and sustainable livelihoods. The department is in the process of finalizing a 20-year strategy which will guide the upgrading of all hostels and ensure the developmental costs are standardized. Continued focus and rollout of slum clearance projects is a provincial priority, and projects in this regard are currently at various stages of the housing delivery cycle. In terms of rural housing development, it is expected that approximately 7,850 units will be completed in areas as diverse as Mzinyati, Amajuba, Herigwala, Mkanyagude, and Ugu. Houses damaged by the flood disaster on 10th October 2017 will be repaired, with 247 million allocated for reconstruction and the repair of houses in the Tegweni Metro for 1920. A total of 1,500 houses will be rehabilitated. The Department of Social Development receives 3.5, 3.7 and 3.9 billion over the MTF. The bulk of the department's budget allocation is for the provision of social worker practitioners. Social work practitioners. The work of this department is centered around improving the conditions of life for all South Africans, especially the poor, and thus fits into the provincial priority of providing good basic services as well as sustainable livelihoods. The department will continue to identify and expand various care and support services to persons with disabilities. These include awareness programs on the rights of persons with disabilities and programs for people with albinism across all districts. The department will continue to increase access to early childhood development to poor children, thus contributing to the provincial priority of education and skills development. The department will host the provincial gender-based violence and femicide summit, and the White Door Centers of Hope will be increased from 22 to 36. Focus will also be on strengthening prevention and awareness programs on substance abuse, including launching the Kemoja anti-substance abuse program, which targets youth at institutions of higher learning. The department will continue to implement integrated youth development programs in its youth centers and academies, and will collaborate with the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs and other stakeholders in the implementation of the high-impact skills development programs, thus contributing to another provincial priority. Planned new infrastructure projects in this regard are the Wentworth Youth Development Center and the Hibiscus Coast, which probably should be Ray in Konyeni by now, Youth Academy, among others. The department will continue to advocate for mainstreaming and empowering of women, which is part of the Radical Economic Transformation Program. EDTIA receives 3.2 billion, 3.4 billion and 3.6 billion over the MTF. The work of this department centers around stimulating economic growth, job creation, as well as skills development for now as well as in the future. This therefore fits in with the provincial priorities as articulated by our Premier. The major projects for EDTIA in 1920 include Operation Vula and the Radical Economic Transformation Program. This includes the KZN Gichima Local Competitiveness Fund, which will target the agro-processing value chain sector. The department will also prioritize the establishment of shared production facilities for small enterprises in support of Operation Vula commodities such as cleaning detergents, bakery products, and toilet paper. The Sakin Zuzo project is another important project and is a partnership project with Tonga Hewlett, whereby support is given to small-scale sugar growers. I cannot help commenting at this stage on a motion that was tabled earlier on about the relationship with Tonga Hewlett, and we can assure you that the leadership has been working with Tonga Hewlett for some time, and even the new MEC met recently with regard to the threats to jobs with that particular company. Other important areas of focus are industrial economic hubs, the Tourism Entrepreneurship Career Expo, the Tourism Homestays Project, Invasive Alien Species Program, as well as in support of SMMEs and cooperative projects. The budget also provides for the KZN Youth Technical Skills Training and Placement Project, as well as the KwaMajomela Manufacturing Center, which is a planned small-scale manufacturing and value-add service center in Nongoma and aims to support local businesses with trading spaces, equipment, and shared facilities for capital equipment incubation. The department will continue to support the bulk buying project aimed at enabling local small traders to get into the mainstream of the wholesale and retail sector by collective buying power to purchase directly from the manufacturers and suppliers of fast-moving consumer goods, thereby securing better pricing structure to enable them to be competitive and grow their businesses. The department will finalize the review of the KwaZulu-Natal Tourism Master Plan, which will provide the latest tourism trends and plans to drive tourism planning, development, and marketing over the next 5 years. In line with the National Tourism Sector Strategy, a provincial event strategy is being finalized to provide guidance on how various events that are key in profiling and contributing to economic development will be supported and funded. On agriculture and rural development, the department received 2.4 billion, 2.6 billion, and 2.7 billion over the MTEF and will continue to focus on providing support to food insecure communities at subsistence and household food production level. The department will focus on economic growth, job creation, and improving the conditions of all South Africans, but especially the poor. This therefore fits in with the provincial priorities again of job creation amongst others. The agricultural development approach will be to transform and promote previously disadvantaged producers, ensuring their inclusion in the agricultural mainstream economy, in particular to achieve household food security, increased production and productivity, and promotion of competitiveness and commercialization of agricultural enterprises, especially of the smallholder producers. The department will focus agricultural development on transforming key institutions in agriculture and the agri-business value chain through the inclusion of designated groups in agriculture. Also, the aim is to enhance national food self-sufficiency and food supply, as well as to increase household food security. In terms of the horticulture program, the focus will be on promoting vegetable production in line with the radical agrarian socio-economic transformation program, as well as subtropical fruits such as macadamia, citrus, mango, and amarula. The interventions will include increased market access, increased extension support, and encouraging value addition to primary products, provision of capacity building to smallholder farmers, encouraging export of primary and processed products, as well as promoting partnerships with commodity organizations. Recognizing the suitability of the province's natural resources for the production of grains and its competitive advantage, especially in the northern and inland parts of the province, the department will promote the development of grain crops, that's maize, dry beans, soya beans, and groundnuts, both for household food production and for commercialization purposes. Cooperative governance and traditional affairs. COCTA receives 1.8, 1.9, and 2 billion over the MTEF to coordinate, support, promote good governance, and enhance financial management in municipalities, provide support and build capacity within traditional institutions, as well as provide support interventions in various municipalities placed under administration as per Section 139 of the Constitution, and will use the additional funds from National Treasury mentioned earlier in the speech for this. The department will also continue to support the installation and recognition of Amakosi. This department's focus is on accelerating economic growth, but also strengthening the capacity of the state and thus ensuring that optimal basic services are provided. Monitoring the implementation of service delivery programs relating to electricity, water and sanitation, indigent policies will continue to be a priority, as well as supporting and maintaining functional disaster management centers and providing assistance with disaster risk management planning. The department will also ensure that the traditional council elections, which are planned to take place in 2019, are transparent and fair. The Department of Public Works receives 1.7, 1.8, and 1.9 billion over the MTF. The department will pay property rates relating to provincial properties, while also focusing on its core mandate, which is the erection and acquisition of building structures and engineering works and the maintenance of buildings to client specifications. I may add that the provincial government has reaffirmed the status of public works as the implementing agent of choice, and I think in yesterday's Mercury there was a full-page advert for a whole number of vacancies that is designed to build that particular capacity. In terms of the provincial priority of job creation, the department will continue to ensure that EPWP generates more work opportunities to contribute meaningfully to poverty alleviation. The program will be extended to more beneficiaries with disabilities and will assist beneficiaries in establishing cooperatives, thus contributing to the provincial priority of growing SMMEs and cooperatives. The EPWP Schools Maintenance Program was originally established to benefit 4,000 beneficiaries in 5 district municipalities. It has since grown and intends to support more than 5,000 beneficiaries in over 2,000 schools across all 11 district municipalities. The department will also provide support to departments and the municipalities to ensure that their EPWP job creation targets are attained. I may pause here to give notice that between Treasury, COCTA and the Auditor General, focus will be put on the implementation of the EPWP program. We are concerned that there may be ghost workers. We are concerned also about selection criteria and processes, and we think there's a longer-term objective of getting better productivity for the amounts that are invested. So this work will continue, and we urge all departments and municipalities in particular to give attention to this particular space. The KwaZulu-Natal Entrepreneurial Development Center project that's under Public Works will be at construction stage in 2019-20, and it is anticipated to be completed in 2020-21. This facility will consist of workshops and training rooms which will be used to provide various training and skills development services to small and medium business enterprises. A key focus area is to develop skills, thus contributing to the provincial priorities of job creation and transforming the economy. The department has the Mayville Conference Center in its care, and this center is used by all government departments to host various conferences, meetings, and so forth. The demand for this facility is very high, and as a result, the department decided to provide another conference center in Pietermaritzburg and will build a new auditorium and conference center with expected completion by August 2020. This project consists of a main auditorium hall, seating capacity of approximately 700, as well as 3 breakaway rooms seating 50 to 100 people. Arts and Culture. The Department of Arts and Culture receives 1.1 billion per annum over the MTEF. In 1920, the department will continue to uphold its core mandate of ensuring cultural advancement of all people through hosting various cultural events and provision of reading and writing material. The department will continue to provide for the provincialization of libraries as well as the construction of new libraries to increase the reach across the province. The department will focus on social cohesion and moral regeneration through the finalization of the establishment of the Social Cohesion and Moral Regeneration Council and the development of a social cohesion and moral regeneration strategy and implementation plan. The Winston Churchill Theatre will be renovated, and the Osizweni and Utungulu Art Centers will be upgraded for the promotion and development of cultural and creative industries. The department will also commence with the construction of the Music Academy in Ladysmith. The department will complete the Ngwavoma Library in 1920 and will commence with the construction of libraries in Mtuba, Richmond, Mshlatuze, Mutu, and Danhauser. In terms of the construction of the archive repository, the feasibility study was completed towards the end of 1819, and the project was handed over to the Department of Public Works, who was allocated a site of approximately 10,000 square meters for building the repository at the proposed provincial government precinct complex site. Construction of this facility is expected to commence in the 1920 MTEF. Provincial Treasury received 721.6, 725.7, and 765.4 million over the MTEF, and this is largely for financial governance and general oversight of all departments, municipalities, and public entities. The budget also provides for internal audit, supply chain management, as well as support for transversal financial system. The main aim is to attain improved provincial audit outcomes to ensure on-budget spending and to remain cash positive. Risk-based audits with specific focus on overall good governance will be performed. Departments will continue to be assisted in terms of ensuring that risk assessments are performed. A case management system tool will be implemented in the departments and public entities to assess whether the recommendations as contained in forensic reports are being implemented. This fits into the provincial priority of building a caring, honest, and incorruptible government. Provincial Treasury has been identified as a key player in supporting the radical economic transformation program through the implementation of a progressive supply chain management regime. To this end, Provincial Treasury will closely monitor and report on the extent that departments implement the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act in the drafting of tenders. Support will also be provided to assist departments in the interpretation and implementation of the PPPFA regulations that were promulgated in April 2017 in order to address the economic imbalances that persist in the public procurement space in KwaZulu-Natal. This contributes to the provincial priority of transforming and growing the KZN economy. The Office of the Premier received 714 million, 753.9 million, and 795.4 million over the MTEF. The bulk of the department's budget allocation is for cross-cutting and transversal activities such as Operation Sugumasaka, integrity management, youth development, support to His Majesty the King, as well as transfers to its public entity, the Royal Household Trust. The overarching responsibilities are to encourage economic growth, to increase job creation, and to develop skills while remaining committed to building a caring, honest, and incorruptible government. The Provincial Planning Commission will continue to support the relevant line function departments in pursuing key interventions such as the formalization of rural settlements, community service centers, renewable energy opportunities, etc. The MTEF also caters for the annual Citizen Satisfaction Survey, as well as the PGDS and PGDP reviews undertaken every 2 years. The department will continue to coordinate the gender, disability, senior citizen, and children, as well as ombudsperson activities to promote and monitor the implementation of human rights-related policies by departments and municipalities. The department will also focus on the functionality of war rooms in as far as equipment is concerned to support ward teams. With regard to the Nkululeko development project, the focus for 2019-20 will be on the second phase, namely Nkululeko Development Project Phase 2 in the Mzinyati and Ntugela districts. The Provincial Legislature receives 598.8 million, 638.9 and 674.1 million over the MTEF for the effective procedural and related support to the House and to committees and to facilitate public participation. The Legislature will continue to improve its oversight of, among others, departments and public entities during the year. Public involvement initiatives like taking legislature to the people and sector parliaments will continue in 1920. The Department of Sport and Recreation receives 479 million, 506.6 million, and 534.4 million over the MTF. And because of shortage of time, I'm not going to take you to the detail of that spend. And Department of Community Safety and Liaison receives 235, 242.8 and 256.1 million over the MTEF. The bulk of the department's budget is for ward safety committees, community safety initiatives, including the voluntary social crime prevention program, maintenance of community safety forums and community police forums, crime awareness campaigns, as well as monitoring and evaluation of police performance. In conclusion, the priorities mentioned earlier will be our guide and our mantra over the next 5 years. They are our call to action. The budget we are reviving today gives each department and each public entity significant financial capacity to advance our agenda. Our commitment to ensure that we spend this budget carefully and correctly has not diminished. As a result, the cost-cutting measures remain in place. These measures allow us to focus our budget on where it is needed and the most so that we can achieve the provincial priorities set for us by our Honourable Premier. As our President called on us to imagine the South Africa we want, I want to implore all of us here to work towards the realization of a KwaZulu-Natal we want. It is often said, and rightly so, that for South Africa to work, KwaZulu-Natal has to work. That is our collective responsibility, all of us. For the country to grow and prosper, KwaZulu-Natal must grow and prosper. We can only make this province work if we build a capable state and ensure good governance at both the provincial and local government tiers. The sheer size of our population, our contribution to the GDP, and the strategic location and resources this province has means that we can fundamentally influence the direction of our country over the next few years. As the Premier said during the State of the Province address, no matter the challenges we face, we are not helpless victims. Through our own agency and active citizenry, we are consciously crafting our collective future, which must be truly democratic, equal, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous. Honourable members of this House, we can make KwaZulu-Natal better, just like we were able to pull ourselves from the devastation of political violence. I have no doubt that we can pull ourselves out of the economic difficulties. Let us build a powerful social compact that reflects the patriotism of all sectors. As KwaZulu-Natal, we must have our own historic mission to lead South Africa. We have powerful competitive advantages in the form of our harbours, our fertile land, our relatively abundant water resources, our wonderful climate, and most importantly, our resilient and disciplined people. But we will need all the help we can from all sectors of societies. I wish to thank, Honourable Speaker, all those who have assisted in making this address possible, from the Premier for the support of the executive team, to Team Finance at National Treasury, to the Chairperson and members of the Finance Committee. We look forward to engaging with you on the 2019 MTF budget and give our commitment to assist you in your oversight role as far as possible. I wish to thank the officials under the leadership of the HOD, Mr. Simiso Magagula, for ensuring that the budget documentation is of its customary high quality. It is now my honour to revive the Appropriation Bill 2019 for the province of KwaZulu-Natal for consideration in this House, to be read with the estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure and the estimates of capital expenditure. I trust that the debate and vote on this revived Appropriation Bill will be constructive and fruitful. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable MEC Finance and honorable members. Now that the bill has been retabled, we therefore refer the bill to the Finance Committee and the Standing Committee on Oversight for vote 2 as per Standing Rule 222 for further processing. Honorable members, we have come to the end of our sitting, but before we conclude, may we check with the Office of the Premier? Okay. Honorable members, we want to remind you that at the end of when we adjourn, chairpersons of committees are requested to remain behind by the Office of the Chairpersons. And the House is adjourned until Tuesday, the 16th of July, 2019, when we start the budget sittings.
Order, Madam Speaker.
Oh, brought early. Well, Maza, I don't know. Oh. Awukhombisi isicathulo nje. Khombisa isicathulo. Khombisa isicathulo manje.
Where? Okay. Oh, Honorable Chairperson, I wonder whether I'll be inconveniencing you if I say come closer. Huh? Hey, mina ngiyahluleka ukukhuluma umuntu ngale kwentaba. Okay, upukeke. Huh? KK, I think you're supposed to be here. Huh? Even today.
Angidingi mina namuhla.
Hayi, iprocess yakho. Mthathe Paulo Okay, I think you can start. And thank you for availing yourself for this sort of an emergency meeting. I think in front of you, you must by now have received an agenda, a proposed agenda, which is an opening apologies, constituting of the meeting, adoption of an agenda. Ingakho ke. Ahem. Buga, ngizangavule u2. Oh. Okay. So the meeting, I don't think we are going to have a long meeting. As you know that we are in an not a usual year, financial year, so that have affected the budget process as we always attend to it. So today we said we need to sit with the chairpersons of committees just to share with them how we have planned to attend to the budget process in a manner that is not going to affect the utilization of funds, because what usually happens if you have not passed the budget, you can use about 45%, you know better. And if it is more than, if it goes up to 4 months, then you can only use 10%. And when they say 10%, that also include remuneration of employees. So you know then what will happen if should we land beyond the 4 months without passing